In this problem, we're going to find the domain and range of a quadratic function. First thing we need to look at is the graph of a quadratic function, which if you have a downward facing parabola, which would have a negative leading coefficient, you would draw this graph pointed downwards. If you have a upward facing parabola, which would be a positive leading coefficient, both your arrows are pointed upwards. And what we want to notice is that these arrows are going to point both to the left and to the right and cover all x values for this quadratic. So the domain of the quadratic is going to be negative infinity to infinity. And we know this because we know that domain is all the x values which can be input into the function. So this quadratic is, or this parabola is covering all x values from left to right. But you can see the range is going to be different. So the range is all the y values output by the function. Well, that would be now looking at these functions vertically, and you can see that on a downward facing parabola it has a maximum, and on a upward facing parabola it has a minimum. So there are going to be a max and min on these quadratics, and that means the range is going to have a max or a min. So how do we find that? Well, these are both called the vertex. So what we want to do is we want to use the vertex formula, which is negative b over 2a, and f of negative b over 2a. And we want to find the vertex, but we want to find the specific y value of the vertex. We don't really care about the x value because we're talking about the range here. But we have to get the x value to find the y value. That's what the formula is telling us here. So we're going to say that x equals negative b over 2a, which means that we have negative 12 over 2 times 3, which is negative 2. We don't care about the x value, we want the y value, so we plug it back into the function to find the y value. When we plug in negative 2, we get 3 times negative 2 squared plus 12 times negative 2 plus 17. This will give you negative 2 squared is 4 times 3 is 12 minus 24 plus 17. So that's 29 minus 24, which is 5. So our range is going to go from 5 to either infinity or negative infinity, depending on how this opens. Well, we see that we have a positive number for our leading coefficient, which means it's opening upwards. So this value of 5 is actually the minimum for that parabola. So we're going to say that the range goes from 5 to infinity. And that's how you find the domain and range of a quadratic.